they deal with it in the afternoon. Vince Signorella, thanks so much for joining us. Vince Signorella covers all the markets for Bloomberg News. Big news out of D.C. Senator Schumer signaling that retreats are one could argue on the shutdown threat. So that looks like the funding bill is going to get done here. We'll find out later today. Nathan Dean joins us, senior policy analyst for Bloomberg Intelligence. Nathan, what's the feeling amongst the Washington folks inside the Beltway? Was that a win for Schumer, a retreat for Schumer, just pragmatism on part of Schumer? How's it being viewed?
So I think it's being viewed as like the worst of, actually the better of two bad options from the Democratic Party. You know, obviously you have a lot of progressives who are upset with this, and they wanted Senate Minority Leader Schumer to fight on this. But from Senator Schumer's perspective, you know, he even said this on the floor of the Senate yesterday. Look, if we shut the government down, Elon Musk and Doge may just say to 75% of those workers that are non-essential, then why don't you just don't come back? You know, if you're not essential, then why do we need you? And so I think what the Democrats are going to do now is they're going to have to try and come together and figure out what their strategy is for the forthcoming fights for the rest of this year. Namely, we do have a debt ceiling debate that's going to come sometime June or July, and the Democrats are going to have to decide, are they going to go with the president to try and increase the debt ceiling, or are they going to use that from leverage? And then subsequently, when the government funding comes up again in September 30th, the question then is, are they going to shut the government down at that point? I do think that we are going to see a government shutdown in the next year or so, a lengthy shutdown. But, you know, the Democrats do have to figure out what their strategy is going forward, because right now they're all over the place.
Well, this is a good point, because I wonder if the strategy then that we learned from Democrats, is that the strategy we're going to see when it comes to like tax cuts, or is Schumer going to be in a different place?
So I think there's two things to think about here. One is Senator Schumer said, look, you know, and I'm paraphrasing here, the situation may be different later this year. And they do anticipate that a lot of these Doge cuts plus tariffs are going to sour the American consumer on the economy and subsequently sour on President Trump's position. So the Democrats feel that they're in a position of strength if they just let President Trump continue to do what it is that he's doing. But then when it comes to the tax cuts, the challenge here for the Democrats is that they're not part of this debate. The Republicans are using reconciliation, which means that they're bypassing the Democrats here. And so the challenge for the Democrats will be to try and push off specific provisions of the tax debate to make it extremely difficult for Republicans to support that. Because right now, the Republicans have a 220 to 215 person majority. They can only afford to lose a handful of votes. And so as we get into this tax debate, the Democrats are going to have to try and make specific provisions very difficult for Republicans to support, but they are not going to be playing a part whatsoever. All of them will be voting no, and the Republicans are also banking on that.
Nathan, can you explain to me, while Democratic leadership even acknowledges that the progressive wing of the party is even in the room, hasn't the country spoken?
Yes and no. I mean, obviously, I think there's still lots of people here in Washington that are trying to figure out why voters went to President Trump in the November elections. And look, there's lots of theories, including that the American voter wanted to be more moderate. But the progressive wing of the party is still a very important part of the party. I mean, we see it on X, we see it in terms of activists, we see it in terms of headline generation. You know, there were calls for Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to primary Senator Schumer in this next debate or the next election cycle. So the Democrats have to try and figure out unity, because that's one of the ways the Democratic Party is going to be able to combat President Trump is through unity. And so whether it's Representative Hakeem Jeffries in the House or Senator Schumer in the Senate, the Democrats are going to have to use the next few weeks and months to really try and come together and find that unity if they have any chances of trying to win big in the 2026 midterms.
Who is the leader of the Democratic Party? I know who has titles in the Democratic Party, but who is setting agendas?
So there's really two trains of thought here. One is the leader coming from Washington? Is that Senator Schumer? Is that Representative Jeffries? But the other side are the leaders coming from the states? You have a lot of Democratic governors, Governor Newsom, Governor Pritzker of Illinois, that are trying to essentially become the next leader of the Democratic Party. The challenge is that those governors don't have the same stage, if you will, to be seen combating President Trump. That's up to the Washingtonian Democrats. And so, while the news cycle focuses on President Trump and who is combating President Trump, the state governors who probably want to be the next leader of the party essentially have to wait for the next election cycle to really come closer in order to try and generate that public perception and so forth. So for right now, it's a challenge, and they're still just trying to figure it out.
So we had President Trump actually out there supporting Schumer, saying he did a good job. Is that something Senator Schumer wants to see or deal with?
No, I don't think so. And I think President Trump was probably smiling when he sent that out. Obviously that's not something that Senator Schumer wants to hear, nor is that I think going to change Senator Schumer's position on anything. But I think this was President Trump's just way of saying, look, the Democrats folded and we, the Republican Party, have won again. But from Senator Schumer's perspective, there was this really thought that, by not signing the deal, a lot of negative things were going to happen for federal workers. I go back to Elon Musk just over the last couple of days in terms of what we've seen on X. He's questioning, if you're not an essential government worker, then why do you have to work? There was this thought that maybe 2 million federal workers may not ever come back to the office if you were to have a government shutdown. And if you're trying to, corral Doge into a public perception to allow voters to come to your side and saying, look, if you want to oppose Doge, join us, being seen as also trying to put harm on federal workers probably wasn't good policy. So Senator Schumer was stuck between a hard place, and I think he chose to fight tomorrow as opposed to fight today.
Yeah, that's what it also seemed like.
See, I thought that the tomorrow was actually today. I thought this was the time.
Well,
during
that's
the
actually
shutdown too, so.
a pretty decent point also. I hate to bring this up, but entitlement spending. What is the reality behind Medicaid, Social Security in terms of what Elon Musk is going to do, and what is going to be the official line on either party on that?
So you have two things that are happening here. You have Elon Musk saying, look, we have to challenge entitlement spending in order to save the deficit. And I don't think the Doge Committee is going to be able to do anything that remotely close to tackling the deficit or in the budget unless they go to entitlement spending. But then you also have entitlement spending, that is the third rail of American politics, whether it's Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security. Any politician that moves forward and says we're going to cut this usually pays the political price. So the challenge is that as we go forward with this tax reform debate, there is going to be a serious debate on whether or not entitlement spending should be cut to help pay for these tax cuts. Now, I don't think entitlement spending is really going to be touched all that much. Obviously, there's fraud concerns. President Trump said in his joint address to Congress, there's a person living somewhere in the States that's 300 years old getting a paycheck. But, I don't think that the American populace and also those folks on Capitol Hill are in a position yet to challenge entitlement spending, because I would just remind folks that President Trump has said that they're going to go after waste, but they're not going to change the actual benefits and they're not going to touch it. That's very difficult, whether you're Elon Musk or Capitol Hill, to actually do something with.
All right. Matt from Westchester writes in, what's the latest on the SALT tax deduction?
Is this Matt who's really sitting in the newsroom who
Yes.
just got off air?
Yes.
Cool. Just checking.
So there's general consensus that the SALT deduction has to go up. Currently, it's capped at $10,000. Now, if Matt had his way, they'd say get rid of the deduction in its entirety. I don't think that's going to happen. But I think what will happen is that you will see a cap rising potentially 20,000, 50,000. I don't think they'll get 100,000. Representative Lawler from Long Island would certainly love that. But there are enough Republicans in the House that have gone to President Trump and said, you have to give us some sort of SALT relief. And President Trump is on board with that. And I think that direction will make it to the House committees when they write this bill.
All right, Nathan, thanks a lot. We really appreciate that. Nathan Dean, Bloomberg Intelligence Senior Policy Analyst, joining us there.
So maybe some good news, but not for this tax year.